Chalo.
Alright. Okay, let's
Should
do
we-
this.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Hi, my name is Nishant Mittal.
And I'm Sarthak Bhardwaj. Welcome back to another episode of I Read This Book. Today we have with us an extremely good friend of mine and a super senior in my college, Abhyudaya Singh. Abhyudaya, who was an intern with an additional Solicitor General at the Allahabad High Court, is perhaps the best fit to review and talk about the book which he has read today. That is Fali Nariman's God Save the Honourable Supreme Court. We're so glad to have you with us.
Really?
today.
Thank you guys. Thank
Thank
you
you for
having
coming. Great. So, Abhyudaya, would you please give us a short description, kind of a summary of the book?
me. Okay. So, God Save the Honourable Supreme Court is Fali Nariman's description initially. Like it's divided into multiple chapters, but majorly it revolves around the press conference that senior most judges of the Supreme Court conducted a couple of years ago. And the controversy around who is the master of the roster and who decides that which judges will take up which cases at the Supreme Court. So he dwells into this issue and the controversy surrounding it, and why in such an unprecedented move for the first time ever there was a need for senior most judges of the Supreme Court to come out in front of the press and describe to them the problems that were there in the Supreme Court, while it has all been handled internally.
Yes.
So, this was the something which happened which was severely covered in the media,
Yeah.
where it was considered like a murder of judiciary and
Definitely.
all sorts of inflammatory.
Yeah,
Yes.
unprecedented. It
Yeah,
had
it
never
was
occurred
huge.
before.
It doesn't happen because judiciary is a separate organ altogether, and we always hold it in such high regard that any disturbance has been handled internally. So for the senior most, removing the Chief Justice of India, the second, third, fourth, and fifth senior most judges coming out and addressing grievances such as major cases not being given to them or being assigned to them, and instead they were being assigned to a junior judge. So
Yeah.
that was a cause of major concern because it raised some sort of an inference that there was forum shopping of some sort, that the Chief Justice was allotting cases to people who would give their decisions in a particular way,
Yeah.
favoring a particular person or a particular party.
So this was also a very flammable kind of a scene which was given a lot of political light.
Yes.
So is this a scandalous book, or is it like a,
It's not a scandalous book. It's typical of Fali Nariman ji. He writes what he has seen and what he knows. And so this book is divided into multiple chapters, out of which the first chapter is titled God Save the Honourable Supreme Court, which also happens to be the title of the book. The remaining chapters deal with his time when he himself was an advocate, a senior advocate at the Supreme Court.
So the book is not focused on that centerpiece.
Yes, it's essentially, it begins with that, and then
That's the backdrop for it.
Yeah, that is the backdrop, and then we talk about supersession of judges in the Supreme Court, and then conduct in the Parliament by legislators, ethics, and suppression of minorities,
So
freedom
tell
of
me
speech.
why that happened. I mean, what was the scenario? Like 4 judges came out and said our Chief Justice is a crook. Was that it?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way.
Of course, because I'm not a lawyer, so
Yeah.
I'm asking as a citizen of the country, and people, whenever people were trying to quote the instant, it was basically that the system is rigged, the judiciary is rigged, and 4 senior judges are coming against the CJI and calling him a crook openly. That was how we read it. Was it like, was it?
I think it
What
was
actually happened?
scandalized and in front of the media. So the media has this tendency to blow things out of proportion.
So what happened? What were they saying on the
So
stage?
essentially, what happened was that these 4 judges, senior most judges, they wrote a letter to the CJI and addressing their grievances that they had with the handling of the roster, meaning thereby which judge handles which cases, because it is the Chief Justice who allots these cases. Now, these judges had this concern that select cases were being allotted to judges that were much junior to the judges that were here. Like, there was a case of Lucknow, there was a medical college in Lucknow, and its admissions, there was an allegation, there was an FIR by the CBI that some sort of gratification was given to a High Court judge for a favorable decision. And this case had come into the Supreme Court, and there was an independent inquiry that was demanded. And it was said that said High Court judge was lobbying to get a favorable decision in the Supreme Court.
Oh.
And at the same backdrop, in the same petition, this petition was allotted to a particular judge who was not senior in ranks as compared to the other judges. As you see, the matter is very serious. So it demands that this is to be put in front of someone, not denying any judge's caliber, but to be put in front of a judge as serious is their concern to the senior most judges.
So what people were saying was that after a point, these 4 judges or the senior chief I don't know, I'm not the
Yes,
guy
sure.
again, but they're all equal. So they're not supposed to be differentiated as far as seniority is concerned.
Abhyudaya,
What's the reality?
Yeah. So the thing is ki, the Chief Justice is one among equals.
Mm-hmm.
In
Yes.
judicial side of things, all the judges are equal.
Yes.
But from the administrative standpoint,
Seniority.
the Chief Justice is the master of the roster.
Of course.
As has been set precedent by various high courts, that it is the Chief Justice himself who allots
No, I get
what
that.
cases
My
are going
point
to
is,
judges.
when CGI at that time, probably Dipak Misra,
Yeah, Deepak.
was allotting cases to judges, the argument against the 4 people who came out, was that they weren't junior. They were well suited for the judge.
Well, if I might add, and maybe you can build on that after my summation, the functioning of the Supreme Court is on the basis of seniority. So people from the high courts are appointed to the Supreme Court based on seniority. So merit is not a factor of question because it is understood that whoever is a judge of the Supreme Court or the High Court is of substantial merit. But the cases which were being allotted to junior judges were very important, such as Aadhaar and a couple of other cases.
High profile cases.
High profile cases.
So, were they junior judges?
Junior in terms of seniority.
In seniority, as
Yeah,
in the time they've served?
Because they were promoted to the Supreme Court much later than some of the senior judges. So as a rule of propriety, if I'm not wrong, the judges who came out in protest should have been allotted these cases.
So,
What does Fali Nariman say on this?
I'll tell you one instance on this.
Yeah.
This one matter that I mentioned about the CBI and the FIR, this came in front of court number 2, which is Honourable Justice Chelameshwar.
At that
And
time.
this matter at that time, and this matter required mentioning. Mentioning mean urgent hearing of the matter. So, Justice Chelameshwar was well aware that mentioning can only be done in Chief Justice of India's court, right? So he said that the said matter should be allotted to the appropriate bench. Now, when the registry asked the Chief Justice of India who the appropriate bench is, the Chief Justice allotted court number 6, as in 6th in hierarchy, to be the appropriate bench. A similar petition the next day comes in, and Justice Chelameshwar says that this is on similar grounds, but seeing that the Chief Justice has allotted it to a junior judge, he tells the registry that it is my court, it is this bench that will be dealing with this case itself. So, this set a wrong precedent. At the same time, someone from the registry came in and came with a circular that was passed a few days ago, wherein the Chief Justice had said that the current petition that you are hearing should be heard by a 5-judge constitutional bench consisting of the top 5 senior most judges. So Justice Chelameshwari said that this said matter will be dealt with by the senior most judges. Now when he did that, he was at fault, as Mr. Nariman says, because it is only the Chief Justice of India who can tell which bench is to be formed and what matter are they to be dealing with.
So that's
the procedure. So the procedure they're going with is that whenever the said matter cannot be dealt by you, or it is to be dealt by an appropriate bench, you refer it to the Chief Justice, and it is the Chief Justice who then streamlines it to the next bench.
Sounds like a
because
logical
that
thing.
was not done. That is why the Chief Justice came out and said that it is I who is the master of the roster, and it is I who is going to tell you which cases are to be dealt with by a particular judge and which not.
So who was right in that case? Was the CGI right? CGI right? Were the 4 people who came out, now one of them is CGI? Who was right? As a citizen, I want to know.
And before
What does Fali Nariman sir say?
Let's not give our opinion on the matter because
Yeah, of course. What does
does-
Mr. Nariman say about that?
Okay, so he says that yes, it is the Chief Justice of India who is the master of the roster. So when it comes to the administrative side of things, he is not one among equals. He is the head of the hierarchy. On judicial side, every judge is as equal as can be. But it is someone has to allot work to the other, right? So when all of this controversy came about on 2nd February of, if I'm not wrong, 2018, the Supreme Court website came up with a list suggesting what judges are to take up which cases. And surprisingly enough, the PILs were restricted only to the Chief Justice of India.
Yes, I remember.
Now I'll tell you why this is surprising. Because at this very point, a lot of PILs were being filed in the Supreme Court on the Judge Loya's death. So Judge Loya was dealing with Sohrabuddin fake encounter case. In one of the accused was our Home Minister, Shri Amit Shah. Now, after the death of Judge Loya, the judge following him dismissed, in fact discharged the Home Minister, and people raised queries about the untimely death of this judge who was dealing with the said case. Now the CJI made a 3-judge bench to deal with the said matters that will be dealing with why this urgent hearing is needed. But in this 3-judge bench, all of these judges, 2, 3, 4 and 5 in hierarchy were omitted. And I think court number 10 was allotted, court number 10 was allotted.
So junior judges were given
junior judges essentially were given the responsibility of this case. I personally feel that no, it was not right, but the Chief Justice of India and Mr. Nariman himself holds that this is not right, that this invites forum shopping. Certain judges will be holding, dealing with certain cases. But
so was it that these guys, the Judge 2, 3, 4 were already involved in something? They were...
No, in fact, it was the Chief Justice himself who had dealt with a similar case. So the petitioners in one of the cases, he said that I wouldn't want the Chief Justice because he has a conflict of interest to be dealing with the said case. So he formed another bench and these judges were again omitted in that bench.
Oh.
So you can clearly see that these judges were being ostracized from the high profile cases, which sort of goes into saying that these judges were not being favored for high profile cases. They were not trying to give them these cases because they knew that these junior judges will be dealing with them and maybe decisions would come one way or the other.
I have a question.
Okay. Please. No, it's okay.
Okay. So, to take the conversation to a different tangent, Fali sir, of course, requires little introduction to those in the legal fraternity and to many even outside of it. And he has been the dawn of the bar for many, many decades, held important places. Now, it is quite obvious when a man of such stature writes a book, many intricacies will seep into his writings despite his best intentions. Do you think this book is for lay people who are outside the field of law?
Definitely. So all this while, what we've been discussing is the controversy that came about a couple of years ago. But the book isn't just restricted to that. It has multiple chapters ranging from what are the ethics in the parliaments. He has various anecdotes about his life and about different personalities. I'll give you an example. When talking about ethics and legislators having ethics, he reminds us of the story of Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee ji.
Okay.
And he says that at one point of time, one of his ministers said something demeaning about the Chief Justice of India. And Vajpayee ji was so hurt by that he demanded that one constitutional body or one high dignitary shouldn't be disrespecting another like that. So instead of asking for the resignation of this minister, he instead went to the president and have him sacked because of that. So he said that was the time. Another example could be of Shri L.K. Advani ji.
All right.
During the time, I think when the Hawala case came about and Jain files were leaked, Mr. Advani's name were in those files. Alleged corruption.
So,
alleged corruption. And Mr. Advani then and there resigned from the parliament, stating that as long as my name is not cleared, I will not come back to this parliament. So he gives examples about ethics in parliaments. Then he talks about the freedom of press in today's world and the suppression of minority, which aligns with what is happening today in the world.
So coming to the conversation starter, he does believe that the CJI was, in fault lines. Is that what you're saying?
He does not give a black and white answer to it. That is how my interpretation of it would be. Maybe but to someone else it might.
But it weighs towards
He does accept the fact that Justice Chelameshwar was wrong the court number 2, the judge. In court
He
number
shouldn't
2,
have done what he
he
was-
shouldn't have
Recommended the-
yes, it to a 5-judge bench. Instead, he should have
Asked the CJI to do
asked
so.
the CJI to streamline it to an appropriate bench. But yes, it did invite some suspicion as to why these high-profile cases were being allotted to junior judges and why not the senior judges.
So I was like, as
don't
a
see any
citizen, I
reason-
would
No,
read
of
it
course.
as the CGI,
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
playing
mean,
by
some
the
of the
rules.
questions that you asked, I believe, are the questions which would be in the minds of people who are
Yeah, because I
disconnected
don't
from
care
them.
about the political correctness. No,
Exactly.
so I would, as a citizen, would be like, okay, that CGI played fishy.
Definitely. In fact, that is what the media flashed, that is it the CGI who's not handling the roster well? But nobody knows the real intricacies. So Mr. Nariman doesn't give a black and white answer like you asked. So if I were to say something, it wouldn't be right on my part because that is not what he has written.
Right.
He evaluates both the sides. He
As most politically correct people do.
definitely.
Yeah.
But
But understanding from your summation and having read the book also, it's extremely important to read this book because judiciary as a body is very internal when it comes to solving its own disputes.
It's like a black box.
you don't know what's happening
Exactly. So
inside.
it's for a society, I consider judiciary and bureaucracy as like two big black boxes. When nobody can see inside what happens, it's like a dark world. It's like
I'll tell you something interesting. A former minister went to the extent of saying that the working of the collegium system, which is responsible for appointing judges to the Supreme Court and High Court, is perhaps one of the best kept secrets of our country.
Exactly.
And
So
I read that in Fali Sir's book, his autobiography, that is
Before Memory Fades.
Before Memory Fades.
Yeah.
Very
So it's
nice.
not my opinion.
That's great. That's true. So we should at least, try to peek into the black boxes
Sure.
whenever we can. We should read about the bureaucracy.
Definitely.
We should read about judiciary and then start talking about things on social
Fali
media.
Sir is a legend. I mean,
That's great. So it was great
Yeah, it was
conversation.
fun.
Really,
Yeah.
really nice to have had it.
A lot of
with
fun.
it. A lot of fun. For
Thank
sure.
you so
Thanks
much
for having me.
thank you so
This
much
is
for being
like,
with us.
This must have been the 8th episode.
8th episode. I
We're
read this
really
book.
happy if you're enjoying these episodes. Just do what you're supposed to do. You know it. I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah,
you
like,
wanna-
share, like, share, and subscribe. It's important, guys.
Great. Touch wood. And thank you.